I've got this box here because it's got Minnie Mouse in it, and I've been desperately trying to untangle it. These were I'm only showing this because it's quite relaxing, isn't it, untangling things, and I'm trying to relax a bit because when you try and talk about your life, which most of us don't get the opportunity to do. I'm just doing this myself. There's no Netflix crew here. It's all just it's Duncan's crew. It's a phone on a picnic basket with some blue tack, and I'm just talking to myself. But it's not easy just talking about yourself, and it's very difficult to talk to one of these cameras or unless you're a professional, and I'm not. But as I'm doing this, I'm just sort of came into my head. I'm just wishing that my father was here, and I've got one of his badges here, and he was a wing commander on the Royal Air Force. He flew flying boats, and I so wish he was just here, sitting with me now, and I could have a chat with him, because he was a beautiful man, a lovely human being, and it's him I've got to thank, probably, that I can go out and just say hello and do all this silly stuff with my camera, because I craved love from him. He did love me, but because he couldn't express himself and couldn't talk about anything, like go for a beer or a bacon roll, none of those things, I felt I guess I felt unloved, and I've always felt I've always felt probably unvalidated. So I had to sort of, I think I kind of created another Duncan that could go out and get liked, attention. So I've created this sort of other Duncan, because even the guy talking to you now isn't really the Duncan that yeah. I'm sorry, I'm waffling on and on, but I just wish he could be here now, give him a hug and kiss him and tell him about some of my issues and my loneliness and stuff. But anyway, I'm waffling on because this is, as I say, it's a wobbly interview, and I'm now going to talk about how in 1985 I suddenly became a music photographer by sneaking into Live Aid. So here we go. So yeah, Live Aid, 1985, July 1985. It was going to be the biggest concert in the world for the famine in Africa. And I thought, wow, if only I could try and get in. I'd just love to photograph it. And by then, the one thing I was quite good at using long telephoto lenses and follow focusing because of the football. So I applied for a pass, and of course they said no. And I thought, I've just got to try and get in. And I went to a press conference with Elton John and Bob Geldof at Wembley Stadium. I sneaked into that, photographed that, and I was sort of looking at the stadium, checking the seating out and some entrances and stuff like that, thinking maybe I could get in somehow on the big day. Anyway, on July the 13th, I turned up there at 7 o'clock in the morning. I had what's called a 400-2.8 telephoto lens and an 800-5.6, a huge lens. And I turned up at the front gate at Wembley Stadium, and it was very quiet, of course, because it was so early in the morning. And there were some security guys there. And I brought some chocolate biscuits and some Cokes and things in a basket. And I got chatting to them, and they said, look, no one's going to be here till 10 o'clock, mate. You know, you can't go in here yet. And I gave them some chocolate biscuits and some Jaffa cakes, and they liked those. And I got sort of chatting to them. And then what I did was I pretended to be on, these are the early days of mobile phones. I was on my mobile phone to a picture desk, sort of saying, yeah, well, we can't get in. I'm going to have to wait around a couple of hours. So I was just making out. I sort of had all these lenses and stuff, and I was sort of trying to make them over here that I was sort of a photographer. Anyway, I got chatting to them some more. And then they said, look, mate, you can't really hang around here with all your equipment. Do you want to bung it? Do you want to just put it inside the gate? And I said, oh, that'd be really good. So they opened the gate to Wembley Stadium. And then I said, couldn't I just sort of put it inside, inside the stadium? He said, well, all right, yeah, I'll take you up there, all right? So he took me up into the stadium to where they were going to be giving the press passes. And that was in like the football changing rooms. and we're sitting in, and I got chatting to him about his parents and his life and stuff like that. It's very powerful when you start telling people a bit about your life, and you open people up a bit. And I got chatting to this guy. Then he was really nice, and he just said, "Look, do you mind if I just leave you here? I've got to go back to the gate." And I sort of said, "Yeah, well, okay." He says, "You know, when they come with the press passes, you get your pass and you can get in." So he disappeared, and I'm in the stadium on my own. So I went up into the seating area in Wembley, the top seating area, and I just hid up there for about 2 hours until about 10 o'clock. The stadium was empty. There was just like plastic sheeting on the floor where all the crowd would be standing. And I thought, well, I'm in here. I wonder if I can photograph it. So when the crowd came in at 10 o'clock, I ran down the seating with these 2 huge lenses, and I ran to the front. And I was about 20 meters back, and then it was rammed. It was a hot day, and we stood there for about 2 hours, but I was in there. And there was a couple of girls sort of next to me who were quite helpful with my, sort of supporting me with my lenses and keeping an eye on things for me like that. And I sort of befriending them, because I knew when I start taking pictures, these lenses kind of get in people's way. So you don't really want to be in people's way, do you? Anyway, the concert started, and I photographed the whole show from the audience for about 10 hours. It was just astonishing to be in there. But what was so difficult was, first of all, you've got these long lenses on a monopod. And the second thing is that it was so hot that they were hosing us down with hoses all through the afternoon. So you kept getting this water coming over, and I'm trying to get my shirt to dry the lens and take more pictures. And when you're photographing a concert like that, it is so exciting, so exhilarating. You actually want to watch it and not take pictures. And what else was happening is, because the crowd were moving and dancing and everyone's hands are in the air, it's quite hard to get clear pictures. And the crowd, because it's a melee, they're moving. So you'll be taking pictures, suddenly you're moving over, and you're moving 4 foot or 6 foot. So it was very difficult to photograph. But I did photograph all of it, and I can specifically remember when Freddie came on stage, and it was just electrifying. You could feel the ground sort of shake. It was just fantastic, but I had to try and concentrate and get these pictures, and I did get a nice set of pictures of Freddie. But it was an exhilarating day, and of course, you're using film. You know, it's not digital. You can't do it with the pictures, and you're trying to get the right exposure, shutter speed. But as I say, I was fairly competent with a long lens, so that did help. And so yeah, I shot the whole show, and luckily at the end, and just get these lovely pictures of all the rubbish. I know it sounds a bit nutty, but I thought it was the end of it, and it was just, I don't know, there was something, it was something very serene there. But anyway, that's how I shot Live Aid. And I left the concert, went and got the films processed, and a couple of days later I went to a friend of mine who was a designer, and we made this magazine called Mega Rock at Wembley, and it was like a 30-page magazine, and I put in it, all the pictures will be, all the proceeds of the magazine will go to the charity. And yeah, the magazine sold about 200,000 or 300,000 copies. But what happened was, about 7 days later, I got a phone call from a guy called Bernard Doherty, and he said, "Are you Duncan Raven?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Listen, your magazine looks just like the official magazine, the book that's coming out in a few weeks' time. So we want it off the bookshelves." And I said, "Oh." And he said, "We're going to send our lawyers into you. We're going to get an injunction." And I said, "Oh." And I was shitting myself, honestly. But nothing really ever happened from that. And I ended up, funnily enough, I think I got more pictures in the official book than most of the photographers that were actually there officially. And by sneaking into Live Aid, that's really how I got a day in the life of the Rolling Stones. And I'll tell you about that sort of later. But yeah, so Live Aid was really the start. After shooting Live Aid, I just thought I want to shoot more concerts. So I just started to go to more big concerts. I wanted to shoot the whole show. So when you want to photograph pop concerts, you apply for a photographer's pass, and you get a pass, and you're allowed to take the first pictures of the first 2 songs or 3 songs, and you're in the pit. That's, as I say, that's looking up. And I didn't want to be in there. I wanted to be back where I was, like in Live Aid, so you can shoot, sort of get more of a head-on shot of artists. And also, if you're in the audience, I wanted to try and get the whole show, all the costume changes. Because if you get all the costume changes of like Michael Jackson, Madonna and other big artists, then you can sell it as an exclusive to a newspaper or magazine. So I always wanted to try and do things from a different point of view. So from about 1985 to maybe 95, I sort of went around the world taking pictures of concerts without passes, with a long lens from the audience. I remember going to Madison Square Garden to do Michael Jackson's one of his first world tours. And I just, as I say, jumped on a plane, went into a motel, got to Madison Square Garden, found a way to get in without a pass, and I shot the whole show from the audience. And those pictures did publish all over the world. So you do get a real buzz from it. But it's like this sort of, you've got this desire all the time to try and do things differently. And I suppose that's what I've always kind of done. But so that's sort of how I got into the music world. I mean, all through those sort of 10 years, 85, 95, I was also going to parties, Oscars, MTV Awards, lots of Princess Diana stuff. And I never really had a pass. I always put on a trendy suit and tried to bypass security and try and get the different pictures. That's how I got the pictures of Freddie Mercury and Boy George and lots of other events that I got into without having a pass. Because, as I say, if you've got a pass, you're always going to be where the other photographers are. And if you're where the other photographers are, you get the same pictures of them. And I wanted to try and get exclusive pictures. So as I've always been a bit of a loner, a bit like a hustler, a hunter. If you want to get different pictures, you've got to go out hunting, and a bit like a cheetah or a lion, you know, you're hunting for things and just trying to get a different angle, different perspective, a different point of view. And that's kind of what I've always done. I remember in September 85, I was just driving along in a car, heard the radio that Wham were performing in Miami like the next day. So literally got in a car next morning with a big long lens like this, a big telephoto lens, flew into Miami, rented a car, sneaked into the concert, shot the whole show from the audience. I was being hosed down again at Live Aid, and came back. These were the days of film. And yeah, those pictures got published all over the world, double spreads. So I was prolifically doing stuff like that. So really from 86, 87, 88, 89, 90, all those years I was just getting into lots of events. And at the same time, by then I'd started, because we were selling pictures to magazines and newspapers, I started selling other photographers' work. And I became like an agent for them and created what was called a picture agency. So other photographers from New York, America, France started sending us their pictures so that we could sell those to publications around the world. And you know, we had a really good time for about 10 years. I ended up with sort of about 20 staff, had offices in London. They were really sort of, they were the times when there was so many magazines for showbiz, and Heat magazine, and then Hello magazine came on the scene, and I sort of became their sort of party photographer. And that's really how it all sort of went from football into entertainment. I just didn't stop going out with this camera, sneaking into events and trying to get exclusives. And great times. You don't realise, do you? That's one thing I'll tell you. When you're young, treasure every day, because it soon goes, and then you get to 65, and then you think, what am I doing with myself? But so I've had some good times. But if you want to be a great photographer, not that I am, but you just got to keep practicing. And as I say, if you want to get exclusive pictures, you've got to just use your imagination, like I did, I guess. I'll tell you, what kind of happened to me is in 1993, I'd been doing all this stuff prolifically, and it kind of came to an end. And it was really Princess Diana that sort of brought that to an end for me, because I went to a polo match on a Sunday afternoon. It's called Guards Polo, because Charles and Diana would be there. And I didn't go there very often, but just thought, yeah, I'll go. I went on this day, and there wasn't really many pictures. And then I was in a hospitality tent. I used to sneak in there, get a glass of champagne, you know. And I heard a lot of women saying, "Oh God, we just saw Princess Diana. She was in her car leaving." It was about 4:30, and I thought, "Oh, crikey!" So I ran across the car parks, and I found Princess Diana in a queue in her car, and I sort of tapped on a window, and the window was down, and she just sort of went, and I really liked that picture. I just thought it was a really nice picture. But what happened later that day was I was driving back into London, and I thought I'd drive across Hyde Park. And I'm driving across Hyde Park, and I'm just sitting in my car in a traffic queue, and I sort of looked, and there was a Range Rover next to me, and no, it was Tom Cruise, right? I thought, crikey, what's he doing there? So I followed the car for about another 100, 200 metres, and it went into a car park in the Serpentine in central London. So I sort of sat back, and Tom got out of the car, opened the boot, got a baby jogger out, put some rollerblades on, put his son into the buggy, those 3 buggy things, and started rollerblading, went off rollerblading. And it's a long story, but I've got this great set of pictures of him rollerblading. And then I was trying to find him, and he was like across. I thought, where the hell is he? And he was basically across the other side of the lake. And I got this picture of him hanging upside down from a tree, swinging his son. And they're the sort of things that, I don't know. It was such a buzz, you know. It was just great fun. And after that, I was packing up. And I was heading back to my car, and I saw Tom buy a set of slides with his kid. And so I sort of hid behind a tree, and I was doing these pictures of Tom Cruise playing with his kid. And then he saw me, and he said, excuse me. And I was only like, 20 metres away. And he said, do you have to do that? And I said, I'm so sorry. He said, have you got kids? And I said, yeah, I have. He said, well, would you like me to photograph you and your kids? I said, no, Tom, I'm sorry. You're just in such demand. He said, but I just need some privacy. And yeah, it really sort of, it really hit me that. It sort of upset me, and I thought, it's just not right doing this stuff. And then literally a few months later, I was driving into London one morning, and my phone rang. It was one of my friends saying, are you going to come and photograph Princess Diana? She's at school. So I said, oh, I can't really be bothered, you know. And they said, oh, come and have a bacon roll. So I went to meet the other photographers, had a bacon roll, cup of tea, and then they all go to the school. We go to the school, and there's a big crowd outside, you know. As she comes out, she's talking to all the different people, like a walkabout. And I was in the crowd, and as she's walking along talking to people, I'm about 4 foot from her, and I was trying to get some nice portraits. Diana was quite difficult to photograph. She often had her head down, so as she's talking to people, I'm trying to do these portraits, and I've got a little flash gun. It was really dark light, and I took a couple of pictures, and then she looked at me and she said, excuse me, and I said, oh yes, ma'am. She went, could you please switch your flash off? I said, oh yeah, and I turned it off. Then I took a few more pictures about 3 minutes later, and she said, I did say no more pictures because the flash was on again. And I said, oh, I'm sorry, ma'am. And as she said that, a policewoman just tapped my shoulder, said, that's enough, sir. And I thought nothing of it. And the policewoman was really polite. And then I went and got in my car and drove into London, and my phone starts ringing, and it's the reporters from different newspapers saying, oh, Duncan, you know, what did she say? I said, well, she just said, you've taken enough pictures. No, said, oh, no. She's stressed. I said, well, yeah, of course she's probably going to get divorced soon. And I just didn't think much of it. It was nothing really. And and then what happened? The next morning, I woke up quite early. My phone was ringing. It was a friend of mine in the city. He said, Duncan, have you seen the Times newspaper? And I said, no, what? He said, you're on the front page. And I just couldn't believe it. The Times newspaper put a picture of me and Princess Diana and said, Diana in sort of an issue with a photographer. And absolutely nothing happened. But I was kind of... this was when Saddam was doing all this stuff, and they put me on the front of the paper. It was crazy, really. But what it did, that was January 1993. What it did, I kind of lost a lot of my confidence to go out and be that sort of Cockney gate crasher. But in a way, I've got to thank Diana, really, because it did really stop me. It just changed my whole path in photography, and I just thought, I don't want to do this anymore, get into events without passes. I want to be official. And so, not too long after that, I got into these pop awards, and oh God, my leg! I'm so sorry, I've got arthritis in my leg. I got into these pop awards, and I'd had this idea to photograph Elton John and Madonna in a different way, and I'd bought a talking parrot and an old camera, and I did get into the back of the pop awards. Backstage, and I went up to Madonna's manageress and I said, is there any chance I could get Elton with Madonna for a picture? And she said, no way, she's just flown in, she's really stressed out, but if you get Elton here. So I thought, wow. So I went to Elton's dressing room and spoke to his manager, and somehow I got Elton and Madonna together in this room, and I had 2 minutes to take these pictures. And so, I mean, that's the thing. It's about using your imagination, and I was pretty stressed. And so I got Elton and Madonna in front of me, and I'm thinking, what shall I do? Well, I had this bag with this talking parrot. You know those parrots where you switch the bottom on, and they're like a furry parrot, and you say something to them, and they speak back. So I gave this parrot to Elton. I said, Elton, do you mind switching that on? And he turned it upside down, or Madonna did. And they started speaking to it, and then they were laughing, and I got a few pictures of that. And then I gave Elton this old vintage camera. I said, Elton, do you mind just photographing Madonna? And he said, yeah, sure. And he's doing. I told Madonna to bend back a bit, and all this is going on about 2 minutes. So I did these pictures, and they were laughing. And then Elton said to me, was that it? Do you want us to do anything else? You know, you've had us laughing. And I said, oh, Elton, yeah, just take your top off. And then he started undoing his shirt, and he went, I said, just pull it apart, and he pulled it apart. I said, Madonna, do you do it? And they both did it. And then I got this great picture, you know, this great set of pictures of Elton and Madonna. I look back and I just sort of think, how on earth did I do it? But I did do it. And then after that, that event, about an hour later, a guy approached me and said, I saw what you're doing with Madonna and Elton. Have you got any ideas of how we could photograph Tina Turner in a different way? And I said, who? And he said, I'm Tina Turner's manager, Roger Davies. And I'd had a few glasses of wine. It was about midnight, and I just thought, yeah, I'll photograph her in a different way. I'll photograph a day in her life. I'll come and get her out of bed, and I'll just shoot her putting her makeup on, getting ready. And yes, I'll do it for free. And you can have all the pictures, and if you like any of them, then maybe you could approve them and I'll publish them. And I was sort of joking, and he said, I don't think Tina will approve that. And 3 days later, I'll get a phone call, Tina loves this idea of these candid set of pictures sort of behind the showbiz, as I said. And then I get a day in the life of Tina Turner, and I'm having breakfast with her at 7:30 in the morning. And that was really how my photography started to change. I suddenly got an interest in humans, and I was just really interested to try and capture people behind the showbiz. And that's how I started to do these day in the life. So I got a day in the life of Tina Turner. She was great fun. I got her asleep on a private jet. She loved the pictures, and they approved about 50 pictures. They published all over the world. Now this is Tina Turner's tour brochure from back then when I did the pictures, and they used a lot of pictures inside. As you can see, there's some, I don't know if you can see that, sort of her day in her life. And it was really glamorous, you know, there's no point. But I do feel a bit awkward talking about all this, because it's as if I'm some sort of real clever person, and or people are all a bit in awe of it. And in actual fact, I'm a really difficult person, and that's partly why I'm doing this, is to try and reveal a bit more about who I am, which is really hard, you know, because the only person that knows who you really are is the person that lives with you, like your wife. And my wife is writing a book called Surviving Duncan, because I'm just a very difficult person to live with, and that's probably why, because I'm difficult, that's why I'm always on my own, and that's why I go out, as a lot of you know, and say hello to people with a compliment, because I've probably got like a hole in my soul, and the plug's missing. Maybe that's from the lack of love from my dad, but I'm always lonely and alone. And my life, although I've had quite an interesting life photography wise, I just think my life is a path of thorns. And where I've got to in my life today, I've upset some people, let some people down, and I really don't mean to do that, and I'm really regretful of that. So it's not all roses, you know, it's just because I photographed all these lovely people. Anyway, I'll tell you some more stories. The next bit, I don't really know what I'll be talking about next, probably a day with the Rolling Stones, or some other things that happened in my sort of photography career. And now I'm going to go out and take some pictures with this. It's much easier, you know. Life was much simpler when you just had a camera, no mobile phone. You could just go and talk to people. Life was just simpler before digital. It was really simpler. It wasn't Twitter and upload and Instagram, and I think people were just happier with a simpler life. I was. Anyway, see you later.